The alcohol and tourism industries are waiting to hear if President Cyril Ramaphosa will lift restrictions on the sale of alcohol when he addresses the country tonight. Earlier we spoke to the Restaurant Association of South Africa's spokesperson, Wendy Alberts, who spoke about the alcohol ban and said that followed by the recent protests and looting in the country, there's been a major loss in the sector.
You know, what we've been saying for the last week is that we have extreme disappointment in Minister Patel that he hasn't been able to afford an industry like ourselves any type of respect, to have any type of consultation. You know, the last 15 months have really indicated, and especially to me over the last weeks, that the industry has had refractions and restrictions placed without having any valid data or any supporting data or statistical information. And it's unnecessary to continue to keep us in lockdown. We're confident that the liquor ban will be lifted. We are confident that we will have a return of our dinner time trade. And we certainly, over the last 2 weeks, have made a lot of noise in trying to get the people that make decisions within COCTA and the decisions within various other high-level government meetings to actually understand how frail our business models are and what we need right now to be able to reopen industry. You know, there's been no compensation. We've been asking, and you will know this conversation, for debt reprieve, for debt amnesty, for debt deferment. We've come up with many, many solutions. And yet again, we engaged with a high-level ministerial meeting with Minister Patel, who couldn't even show courtesy to come to an industry that's bleeding. We sit within the framework, there are decisions that he needs to make, and the actuality of the non-events that he has displayed absolutely no regard to our industry is very concerning. So we are trusting that we'll be able to move forward swiftly and be able to reopen the industry with very little restrictions today.
Well, then the SA Liquor Brands Association says the 4 alcohol bans since last year have resulted in a loss of more than 64 billion rand in GDP. The industry is appealing to government to lift the latest restrictions on the sale of booze when President Cyril Ramaphosa addresses the nation tonight. A report commissioned by alcohol associations recently found that illicit trade has soared during this time. Kurt Moore is CEO of the SA Liquor Brands Association, joining us now to talk about their expectations ahead of the President's address. Kurt, afternoon. Great to have you on. So we've seen a lot of videos online, people saying their local stores are restocking the booze aisle. Can we finally dip into our savings?
Good day, and thank you for having me too, Keely. But yeah, I don't know what the President's going to announce tonight. We're certainly hopeful that he will lift the ban. As an industry, we've certainly tabled a very compelling argument for the ban to be lifted, and it's mostly surrounds the economic carnage that you referred to. You know, we talk about the 64.8 billion rand lost to the fiscus, but our industry has lost 45 billion rand in revenue. That's about 15% of the sales that we normally generate over 2020 and 2021. There's some jobs that are at risk here. By our calculations, about 250,000 jobs are at risk across the industry. That's about 1.59% of the national total formal and informal employment. So there are very sound economic reasons to lift the ban, and that's excluding the impact of the looting and the looting that happened over the last few weeks. And then if we look at the health side, we're very grateful to see and happy to see that there's a reduction in the number of infections, which augurs well, and we hope that both the economic reasons that we've put on the table and also the health implications now being considered, and that we'll have some trade with effects tomorrow.
And when you say 250,000 jobs are at risk in the industry, where in the industry would these jobs be at risk mostly, and what does it mean exactly to say they're at risk? Are these jobs that are going to be lost in a month, 3 months, a year?
Well, look, I think what happens when employers evaluate the situation, the first thing, and already many companies have stopped taking in temporary employees. So those are jobs that are lost. There have been discussions with employees to try and take leave, etc. So, they're not all completely lost. But if this continues, we will start to lose jobs. But, if you talk about people that are affected most, take in the wine sector, in the wine industry, is primarily employees on wine farms, etc. that do get impacted first. So those are the worrying signals for us.
Okay, so not necessarily people who are currently employed who face the loss of a job. SAB recently, just this past week, lost its application where it had taken the Cooperative Governance Department to court to try and fight the ban on the sale of alcohol during lockdown, adjusted level 4. It's lost that case now because the court found that the government did not act unfairly in introducing the ban on the sale of alcohol precisely because of the urgency of the moment. The country was dealing with a third wave, a new variant of the virus. As an industry, is this still something that you think should be fought primarily in the courts?
Look, I don't want to comment on the SAB case. I haven't even read any of the judgment. As SALBA, we've decided that we will continue to try and engage with government. We think that the solution will be found through ongoing consultation. We'd like to have more consultation with government so that there be an exchange of ideas. You heard somebody from the Restaurant Association, and they've been saying things like, instead of including a curfew where all employees are expected to be home by a certain time, can we not give people concessions or some concessions that they can work a little bit later so that the tables can stay available a little later? And that's the type of thing that those type of solutions will only come about by consultation and ongoing engagement. So we certainly want to continue with those engagements with government, and we're open to looking at how do we balance lives and livelihoods, because we haven't once said that this is an easy decision. It is an incredibly difficult decision that government has to face, but we can't continue. And I think some of the frustration that was borne out in the protests over the last 2 weeks is brought about by poverty and hunger, unemployment. So we can't add more people to that list of unemployment.
You mentioned Vinpro, the wine industry body. They've also gone to court in the Western Cape. Their judgment in their issue has been reserved currently, and one of the things they're saying is that issues around restrictions on the sale of alcohol should be decided at provincial level. I'm wondering about the financial benefit of that. When you look at the trends over the last 3 waves of infections, they're usually in the big metropolitan areas. You look at Johannesburg, Tshwane, you look at KZN in Durban, and then you have much of the same in Cape Town. So given that trend, financially, would that make sense?
Yes, look, I think what we've always been calling for in our engagements with government is to focus on hotspots. National lockdowns doesn't help anybody. I've seen in discussions with government, they've broken it down to certain municipal areas that are hotspots and where they're concerned about the increase in infections. So if we're going to start looking at restrictions, let's focus on the hotspots instead of placing blanket bans on the entire country. I think there are other instruments that the government can use, and it's I think we're into this now 16, 18 months. We don't see things like investment in contact tracing, because those are going to try and help to reduce the numbers. We don't see investment in employing and training community health workers or building capacity to conduct these epidemiological detective work. Those are the type of things that we should be focusing on. 18 months into this pandemic, we can't just reach for the lockdown as our only tool in our arsenal to fight this pandemic.
Given how fluid the situation is, Kurt, what are you looking at as far as recovery? When do you expect to begin to see a normalization, a longer-term normalization?
Yeah, look, let me start with, we've actually asked government now to kindly consider lifting the ban and allowing traders to trade according to their licensing conditions. We're basing that, or our request, on, if we look at what happened, people have lost businesses in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. There's very little support from government. Last week when the president made an announcement, he mentioned in his speech that there's some, those businesses who have to apply for business licenses will be exempt up until December 2022. When we made inquiries about that, we were informed that the alcohol industry does not qualify. Not even small businesses within the alcohol industry. So if we're going to leave this industry on its own without support from government, financial support from government, then at the very least we need to allow them to trade, because that's the only way we're going to get out of this current situation that we're in. We have to start trading. We've listened to the restaurant, the tourist sectors. Those are all bleeding, and we're losing much needed employment in this country.
Kurt from the
So
Liquor Brands
that's been our call to the President.
Apologies for cutting you off there. Kurt is with the Liquor Brands Association, of South African Liquor Brands Association, where he is CEO. Grateful for your time. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.